So I'm from New York, and in New York there's a street game where most people make their money, and you have to find the little, in this case, screw that you hide under some covers, in this case, walnut shells. So the idea is you can move them around, and you just got to track where that screw stays. Right? And so you keep moving them around, and if you did it right, it's back in the middle. It's not there, and well, anyway, it's not the point of this video. The point is that when you have these walnut shells that come out in half, they actually have a nice kind of clicky sound. So I was thinking we can make an instrument out of that. Kind of like a wind chime, but made out of these shells. So you can get that kind of nutty sound. One problem though is that when you hit on the side, it's kind of a weak sound. So you really want, as much as possible to get the backs to hit each other. This is not as good. So I was thinking what we'll need to do is put them back into two halves and, well, there's the screw again. Put them back into two halves to make these kind of little round things, and then when they hit, they'll have the most chance of making that nice woody sound. So we'll make a bunch of these. We'll hang them under something. You can run your hand through them like it chimes, and hopefully it'll be a cool sound. So let's build it. All right, so we got ourselves some walnut shells. I think the first step will be to sand them down because they're a little bit uneven. Kind of get them a little flatter so that they get together a little bit better. At the same time, like acoustically, you want a little bit of like a sound hole. Like a guitar will have a sound hole. So we will want the same for this. So you can see how that's sort of very clicky, high-pitched sound is not as good. If we leave a little opening, crack it open at the bottom here, you get more of that woody click, which is nicer. The best to do would be to sand at an angle to get like a little opening at the bottom. And so now when we put them together, you can see there's a bit of an opening. It's like a fish mouth. And so that gets us back to that woody sound. Glue this together. All right, so there we go. So we have a reassembled walnut with a little sound hole in it. So now we just need to make like 100 more of these. So might as well get to it. So we have our walnuts glued into these little puffer fish. And I think they're gonna sound cool. Get that nice brittle woody sound. Putting some of this fishing line through, and then one of these little lead sinkers. Pop that into the mouth. And then for now, sticking it on this temporary piece of scrap wood, just like that. So that's the concept. So when all these are put together, it should sound nice. There's a bit of a problem though with chimes, which is that if you remember your physics from kindergarten, pendulum, like these, tend to move at the same rate if they're the same length. So even if you start them making noise, very quickly they all start moving together. It's actually neat because that's like one of the ideas behind sound therapy, is that there's this entrainment, right? And so if you take one of them out and the others are moving the same, throw this one into the mix, very quickly they all become attuned to the same frequency. Now for an instrument though, where you want this to last a little bit, that's not the best idea, because the sound quickly dies away. So really what we want is a different lengths for the different nuts. And so if I pinch this middle guy off here, you see the sound's gonna last a lot longer, because this one's adding a little chaos to the mix. When we make the real thing, we're gonna have to have the nuts at different lengths, but so that they're all still at the same height. So it looks like these walnuts run about 30 to 35 millimeters. So one thing we could do would be to just, lay them out in a grid. There's gonna be less interaction between this walnut, so it'll be 4. Instead, we could put them out like in a honeycomb kind of grid. And so each one will touch 6. Something where we have them spaced like a triangle with 40 on each side. So we'll make blocks to hold each of the strings. So these will need to be 40, but the height here will be basically coming from that triangle. So if you remember your trig from first grade, so this is gonna be 34.5 millimeters. In 3D, it would sort of look like this. Some will be short, some will be long. What we need to do is get these blocks made and drill the holes in them. Well, since the instrument is walnut, it makes sense to use some walnut. Good for like the frame to sort of set the instrument up. Unfortunately, it's not thick enough to cover that 36 millimeters or whatever. I think we'll go for a two-tone look then. So we'll use the walnut for like the frame, but to make those blocks, we'll pull up this maple 2x4. So we'll just rip that down to 40 millimeters. All right, so we have our blocks cut, drilled, sanded a little bit. And so let's do a look at how this is gonna come together. The general order is 80, 68, 49, 36, 58, 42, 30. So that's the pattern that goes across. So we can take those first 7, and then it starts over with 3. So those gonna go there. And they're staggered, so they're 10, 9, 10, 9. So the 9s go halfway across. So we're going to string up a handful of these and give it a test. We have these lead sinkers, fishing sinkers. And for now, I'm just going to clip it with these binder clips. Has a nice delicate clicking sound. You can see how the nuts move at different speeds because of the different lengths of their strings. So that keeps them going a little bit longer. Jenny and I, when we're playing in our duo, we're always looking for ways to extend the sounds of our instruments because we're often playing 2, sometimes 3 instruments, each of us. And so anything that will keep going without our intervention for longer is useful in some cases. So it'd be really nice to have this sound be able to go for a longer time, which is why this wooden block that holds them all is actually not meant to just be stuck at the top like it is right now. The other element of this design is that it's really this. So I'm going to pull these clamps off. So now we have the wood doing a pendulum thing and the nuts underneath. This wooden thing ends up being like a floating island that really is gonna swing back and forth for a long time. And this very gently will cause the nuts then to keep hitting each other. You can see the whole picture now. So what we'll do is we'll finish up this island and then we need to build the frame. Different lengths for the upper strings and the strings that hold the walnuts will have an impact on how the walnuts interact with each other. But rather than pick a fixed length for each, a better design would allow us to change the length of the upper and lower pendulums. This will let the instrument create different effects depending how you set them. So let's see how this goes together roughly. So this is our blocks, which will be hanging like this. And then we have this walnut frame around it. And then into these 4 holes will go these. And then on top of that will come this plate that we made. All right, not bad. This will let you adjust the overall height of the nuts. So if you want them shorter, then you would just pull this up and adjust those screws. And then this whole thing, which I don't know if I can pick up, will then be swinging back and forth from an overarching frame that will come over that. So that'll be the next thing to build.
Not only does the upper frame have to stay out of the way of the adjustable top panel supports, but it'd also be nice to be able to carry this instrument with one hand. This curved shape will do both of those things, and it also takes visual inspiration from tuning forks. Since there are only 4 strings needed to suspend the maple block island, we can put a spool system onto the upper dual fork. By turning the knobs, the floating island can be moved up and down. Keeping on with the walnut theme, the tops of these side beams of the frame are cut to the shape of walnut shells.
So here we have the completed instrument. We have our 48 walnuts down below. They're going through this floating island with the strings up to this top plate, and each walnut is held in place by these little tofu blocks. And the plate lets you move the walnuts to different heights from the island. And then the island itself is hanging from these 4 braided wires on the corners, which go up onto these spools. And with the spools, you can change the height of the island to different heights. And so by combining different lengths of the walnuts and different heights of the islands, you can get different sounds. So we'll try a few of those out.